The introduction, you are listening to Jels from Biztory. I'm going to guide you through the web edit module on the Tableau server and give you a walkthrough of all the different possibilities, or let's say the possibilities that will be used on a very concurrent basis if you are a user of Tableau server in the Explorer role, because that's what you will be assigned to, a role on the Tableau server. And with the Explorer, you have certain capabilities. With the viewer, which has a little less capabilities. And then for the power users, like me as a consultant, then you are a creator. And we are focusing on the middle kind of role, being the Explorer on server. If there are any problems during the call, the chat is open and I have my eye on the chat, so I will see questions popping up. I cannot promise that I can answer all of them, but if there are any problems, please shout out. This is also not a class to follow along with exercises or something. Therefore, the time is just too limited, let's say. But it is a good introduction to follow along and see where all the bells and whistles are and where all the buttons are situated. So web edit, the agenda of today. We are going to see how to visit dashboards that are created maybe by a colleague or by a creator, the creator of the company, the BI analyst maybe that creates a report that is sharing it on Tableau server, and you as an explorer can consult that. You can consult that workbook or that dashboard and do some changes. That's actually also one of your capabilities as an explorer. Do some changes, customize it to your own liking, or yeah, just make changes. We are going to see how the server is set up, well set up in that way, how the content is organized and where and how to find easily where your reports or your favorites or your subscriptions are situated and where to find them quick and easy. How you can modify your homepage, maybe with a favorite as well, that every time when you log in, you have your standard view to visit or to look at immediately. Let's say an overview KPI that you want to keep an eye on every day or every week, that is your homepage. Then you don't have to browse or search for it anymore. We'll see how to set something like that up as well. So that's already the favorites and the subscriptions. The data-driven alerts is also a capability where you can, for example, make a setting and then you will receive an email, for example, with a KPI that has changed in percentage too much, and you've set an alert as in, if this KPI decreases with more than 5%, please notify me, then I want to investigate. So that's what we call a data-driven alert. And then the natural language engine on Tableau server itself, that makes it possible to consult a data source and actually type in a question, and Tableau will try and construct a visualization or an insight for you. So that's the whole Ask Data module on the Tableau server. And the final thing is, if we make modifications to an already existing dashboard, or if we connect to a data source where we have access to and we create a report and we want to share, that's also going to be shown. So without further ado, a quick overview of where we belong as an explorer in the whole ecosystem, in the roles. Like you can see here, we have all the capabilities that you can do based on your role. You can access data, maybe you can interact with data or reports or whatever. Everything that you can launch towards the server is accessible. You can interact, collaborate with colleagues, and also generate data sources or reports yourself. Then you will be an author, for example. Preparing data is also a possibility, but as you can see, the middle column is Explorer. That's our role that we will be talking about today. You have practically 2/3 of all capabilities of the full-blown creator role, but on the preparing your data, etc., there is a little less capabilities for the Explorer. Also, the governing of data is also a little bit limited. Why? In the mindset of Tableau, that is a role or a task of a real creator that is a manager of the data, and that can also verify data sources. So company-wide, you're always talking about the same numbers or the correct numbers, and that there is only one or two people responsible, and that you already know who to contact, for example, when there are mistakes or whatever. Then that's more the creator that will be in charge of something like that. I don't know, of course, which audience I'm talking about. Maybe there's creators interested in how to expand the number of explorers in the company, and then they already know what I'm talking about, as in they have full capabilities with the desktop app as well. If we have some new explorers that just want to see what they can do with reports they already access on a daily basis, for example, you guys will learn a lot then today. So without further ado, we will browse to the server. And I already logged into our company server. And this, for example, is my account. So this is my account on the server. I am a creator. And I also have my own site. In most cases, a site is a subsection of the complete company server. In our case, I have my own personal site. In a lot of companies, that will just be the production kind of environment where you will serve to, and you then will see all kinds of folders. For example, the finance folder or project where all reports and insights concerning that topic will be shared, and then you will be able to navigate to that. So this is my own homepage with some testing out workbooks and reports. So the recent, that's all talking for itself. That's what I visited the last. So a few minutes, half an hour ago, I launched the workbook that we will work with today. And that's also immediately the last one that I visited. So if you are browsing always to the same 3 or 4 reports, you will always see them on the recents on your home page. So when logging in, your default page that you will be navigated to is the home page. On the left, we have our navigation bar on the server. And right under the home page, there is Explore. And Explore will make it possible for you to see all the different projects and folders that you have access to. The access will be potentially arranged by your admin. So you are an explorer in role, so you have certain capabilities that are linked to your role. And that role can then also be limited, for example, by your admin saying, I don't want them to, for example, connect to certain data sources. And in that case, you just won't see them in your Explorer. Explorer is a big folder with all the things in there that you have access to. And I created a few. Default is also one that is always there. You can remove it if you don't need it. So that's also maybe up to your admin. But as an Explorer, you can also create your own folders. You create, for example, some work in progress or something that is still to be verified. That can also be created by yourself, and then that's visible for you. And if you want later, you can invite colleagues, and then that's again a shared folder that will be visible for you and for your colleague based on who you invite. I created a sales departments folder and a stock portfolio analysis folder. That's one of my hobbies. That's why I created that on my personal environment on the server. If we then click on a project or a subject, for example, this sales department, that's where I launched the workbook. This is one workbook. And if I now click on my workbook, I will see what that workbook contains. The workbook here is just the main example of Tableau itself. Tableau itself has the superstore with some real life kind of data from a store where they have created a beautiful dashboard, and that's a good resource, for example, to get started or to pick up some inspiration for visualizations. So if I then navigate to the overview, the first dashboard that has been created in this sales analysis subject, then I go to the overview and I'm brought to my dashboard itself. And now I can start interact with this dashboard. Of course, in the capabilities that this designer or the creator has intended. So I have on the right a few filter options and I can start playing with this dashboard. And I will see the changes being applied. Now, when I'm on the dashboard, you can see a few other options instead of just the navigation of our server and our different folders. You can see, for example, that you have the data details, the view this original view. So this is now a page, a dashboard with a view. I have already done an action. That's why we see an asterisk. I have done a filter action based on the map. I can now say I want to call this a filtered map. And then this is a view that I have saved for myself and that I can quickly navigate to again. So if I save this, for example, filtered by map and make it my default is a quick tick box option or make it visible to others. If you tick the make it visible for others option, if other people, colleagues, go on the view tab that I just clicked earlier, so this view tab in the middle that I clicked earlier, then that will be seen by your colleagues if you tick that make visible to others. Otherwise, it will only be visible to you. So you can make differently filtered dashboards for yourself, and then afterwards, when you have saved them, quickly navigate to them again. So you don't have to, for example, change 4, 5, maybe 10 filters or parameters all at the same time. You can then just quickly navigate to a view that you have saved where you already did all the correct filtering. So that's already a very powerful capability. So let's see, filtered by map. I'm going to save this. And this is now my view that I will be taken to because I have filtered it. And this view also here next to it, no asterisks anymore because I haven't done any changes at the moment. And my name is appearing. So if I now click this one, I am looking at the filter by map, my saved view. I can be taken back to the original or default just by clicking on it. So this will become a list of all your interacted dashboards and saved dashboards. So that's already, I think, a very powerful option that often gets overlooked, let's say. Some alerts, right next to that option, there is the alerts option. Alerts will make it possible to create a data-driven alert. So the email that I talked about earlier in the introduction will be driven or will be sent based on a KPI that changes. So if I create an alert, so for example, quantity, create an alert. Sorry, create an alert. Okay, didn't work. Oh. So you will always have also, like you saw, the server will always try and guide you when you are stuck somewhere. It will give you a tip or a trick what you need to do to change it. So if I now select here, okay, I want to create an alert and we will email you when there is. So a numeric axis of a chart. This is a numeric axis of the chart. Then create. It doesn't recognize it. So yesterday it did. Okay. Normally that should work, but don't see why. But then you have a list of all your alerts that you have set up. And when a certain number goes over or under your condition that you created, then you will have an email in your inbox with a overview of that KPI and also a link that you can quickly be taken to that dashboard and investigate a little further. We'll move on with the next metrics one. Metrics is a fairly new feature. Haven't played with this one already, but what this creates is actually automated KPI boxes. So that automated KPI box will then be also possible to put on your homepage. And for example, you will then see on your homepage first your metrics and then your recents, and the recents like we saw earlier on our homepage. And that's also a good way to keep an eye on certain changes or certain evolutions. Let's say you are looking at your sales, the raw sales, the quantities, the profits. You can then have 4 or 5 overview KPI boxes instead of a big dashboard where you maybe still have to search for information. The KPI box will then just be shown as an individual number and keep a nice tight overview. Subscribing is also an email related capability. If you want to subscribe users, you can address a whole group, maybe the group you're in, maybe the finance group or the sales group. You can then type in their names and also subscribe me, but we assume that you want to alert maybe others or include others in that information pipeline. So that's where you can then subscribe others to your visualization or to your dashboard. Include this view. This view will then be included in the email that gets sent in some kind of PNG format. You can see here image. You can also change it to a PDF and an image and a PDF. Maybe if you know up front that they want to use it in a presentation, image and PDF, and a message. A message and then the schedule. I, for example, use this for our own planning. The planning gets sent to me every Monday morning at 8 o'clock just to give me an overview of the latest changes and how my week will look. That's how I set up a subscription for myself in a PDF kind of format. And that gives me a quick overview without me having to surf Monday morning to the server, filter on my name, and take a look for the current week. That I all don't have to do. Just looking at my inbox and the alert is there. Then, next to subscribe, there is a very interesting one, and this is one for the explorers. It's called Edit. Edit makes it possible to go to the background of this dashboard, the background being a desktop app kind of interface. So you will have a lot of the capabilities in the edit that we also have in the desktop application. The options are a little bit more limited, but Tableau is working more and more to get to the point where there is feature parity, where we have the same options in the web application as we have in the desktop application. We are not there yet, so that's something you need to know. You will have some limitations here and there. For example, if you can filter in 10 kind of ways on the desktop app, you will maybe be able to filter 7 ways on the web application. But still, there is some limits, but the limits are getting slimmer and slimmer compared between the two tools. If we push this button, Edit, we will be taken to our editing interface, our application kind of interface. And I will be showing how it looks on the desktop app and here on the web application. So you can see that there is, in fact, not that big a difference in between what you see in the desktop and on the web. So here we are taken to the original dashboard where we can already see input that we can give. There is the show me. There is actually the toolbar that you would see in the desktop app here shown in the browser right now. You also have your menu bar on top where you have multiple options for worksheets and dashboards. What we are currently looking at is a multitude of sheets put together to form a dashboard, an overview dashboard. On the left, we have our interface that you would see in the desktop app as well, where all the sheets are listed that we can choose from and drag and drop onto our dashboard itself. So currently we have the map, we have the sales by segment, and we have the sales by product category, and our filters here. The filters are coming onto this dashboard based on the fact that they are active on individual sheets themselves. If we then quickly go, for example, to a sheet, That's a little bit yet another interface that we will see. So if we go to a sheet, so you select a sheet. So for example, this is a KPI box and a sheet. I'm going on this map sheet. And if we take the navigation arrow, we will be taken to that sheet. Also mention the go to sheet pop-up. If we click that button, and I always am amazed by the fact that it goes pretty quickly in the web browser, we are taken to the original sheet, and it's here that we can see how a certain sheet is built up, the technicalities of it. And that's what I meant in the beginning. All the users of Tableau server, if the administrator enables it or launches it for you, you will have access to this completely well-constructed exercise workbook to poke around and take a look how certain visualizations are made. For example, a very nice one is if we go back to the overview, these KPIs here, in fact, it's one sheet where you can then see how did they actually construct that, and you can see that they are making use of a certain technique called measure names, measure values. I'll quickly showcase that a little bit later. But by poking around, you can see how they do things, and you can learn a lot that way. So what we can see here now is where you really construct individual visualizations. And this is practically the same interface as on the desktop application. Let me just quickly show you how the desktop version looks and how this in the web looks. And that way you can see, okay, this is very, very similar. So if you take a look here, this is my desktop application, and the dashboard completely looks the same. You also have your sheets that you can see, your objects that you can put on. You have maybe 2 or 3 buttons more based on the fact that you can save it locally. You can add or pause your data source, but if you look at the left, you also have those. Um, you cannot refresh your data source here. Maybe you don't have access. That's something that is maybe a little bit more limited, but for the rest, you can see you have all the same options on the web app. If we then go into that same sheet, the same map, you can see the same kind of structure here. Some more in the web. Why? Remember that I clicked a state on the app, on the map, not the app, but the map. I also already clicked, so you see there is a few more actions on the dashboard where I already interacted with it. And in my desktop application, I didn't. But if we take a look at the columns, the data sources, the visualization canvas, the pane where we work, it's all very, very similar. So you can feel very confident that you can do a lot of the same tasks that a creator can do. So that's always nice to know in the background. So being having shown that, you are now confident that you can do a lot here. Let us open a new sheet, a blank canvas. I, as for example, a sales manager, maybe I am interested in creating yet another visualization. I am going then in my workbook where I'm doing changes. I am going to open down below a new sheet. A new sheet can be opened in multiple ways. Tableau always says important tasks can be done in 2 or 3 different areas on the tool. Why? Because then everybody will find their own preferred way of, for example, quickly opening a new worksheet or making calculations or constructing visualizations. So that's something Tableau allows you to quickly find your own way. There is multiple ways of doing the most important things in Tableau, and that makes it a very convenient tool to work fast from time to time. So I'm going to open a new worksheet using my preferred way, being ticking the box create new sheet, and then I have an empty canvas and I can start making a visualization that I'm probably interested in. And I'm interested in identifying my top customers, for example, for the last year. So there's a few things that I'm then interested in. I'm going to use a few different fields. And when you're completely new to Tableau, the tool allows you to use something, a feature called Show Me. Show me is situated on the top right corner, right under my name here. Show me. If we make that drop down click open, we see that everything is for the moment grayed out, but we see some visualization possibilities. And those possibilities will be colored in based on the amount of fields that I will be selecting. So remember, I am a sales manager. I want to identify my top customers for the last year. So I will be interested in my customer name. And now I have made one selection and the table is already a visualization that I can do. Tableau will always put a square around the visualization that the tool itself thinks that's best for your needs, okay? So customer name is selected. If I then want to select multiple fields are selected by using your control key. So if you use your control key and then also take, for example, the sales, you already see I have now selected two fields, one metric, one categorical value. We call them in an earlier stage of Tableau dimensions, but now they are just categorical fields here in a bluish color. And green, they identify metrics, measures called. So that's a numeric value, sales or quantity, profit, whatever. Let's also include profit. And we see our top customers based on profit and sales. I am now going to select one of the visualizations, and then you will see how Tableau quickly puts that question into an insight. So I will click the bar chart here, let it work for a minute. And then this is Tableau's way of showing me that insight. I can click away the show me. Profit and sales, that's easily identifiable. Those are the bars, the numeric values. And I find this kind of construction a little bit confusing. So if you now, for example, quickly want to turn this visualization around or pivot, if you will, turn it around like an image, you can then quickly go to the toolbar on top, and use the swap option. What this will do is the columns and rows, we call them shelves, where we put our content on. So the rows shelves and the column shelf. This is also the filter shelf, marks, guard, where we can do some coloring options. But if you want to quickly shift them around, you can use your swap, and Tableau will swap them for you. If you are thinking, oh, the profit, it doesn't mean that much for me at the moment, you can then use the capability of Tableau. It's probably not new for all of you, but it's a drag and drop tool by heart, of course. And what I just did is create a visualization based on the show me option, but don't ever forget that you can drag and drop information wherever you want on this canvas. And I'm going to drag out profit, and my visualization will be reconstructed as a very simple customer name for all the individual rows, and the sales here is now shown. But this still doesn't show me, of course, what are my top 10 customers, for example. I want it filtered. I'm not interested in around 1,000 customers over the last 25 years, for example. I now want to do a few more actions to see that top 10 that gets updated every week when my data is updated, for example. So one of the first steps is going to be, let's sort our customer name based on the sales. And you can do this in a few ways. So remember, an action that is pretty important, sorting. You can do that in multiple ways. So I will use the quickest way, and that is to click on the axis of the measure or the metric itself. And that's down below where the name of that metric is shown. And you already see an icon appearing. So if I don't hover over the name, then you don't see anything. But if you click this icon, you will see Tableau changing the visualization to a sorted high to low value. And then I can see that Daniel Raglin is my overall top customer with $8,000 of sales. Still not all of my requests are met, so I now want to filter or make my visualization more narrow, as in the data here shown is over the last 3 years. The data starts in 2018 all the way up to 2020. And I am going to filter this data to the last year. And then this will maybe change my customers as well. But that was part of my business question. So what I'm going to do is now show you how you can pick up that categorical value, being the date itself, and drag and drop it on the filters shelf. So I'm going to look for the date. I know this is the order date. There's yet another date as well. That's the shipping date. That's for another subject. But this is a date. And also something that gives that away is the data type indicator in front of the dimension or the categorical value. And that indicates this is a date. You can do different actions with that. So every data type also allows you to do different actions in Tableau. So I'm going to pick it up. So I'm going to click, hold, and drag it to my filter shelf. And my filter shelf is situated somewhere in the middle here, in the middle of my screen. So picking it up, holding it, and then see how Tableau makes it orange, the different places where you can potentially put that dimension. So that's Tableau saying, okay, this date, put it where you want, all options are available. I'm identifying those with a orange box around it. So if I now release that, it's going to give me a few of my filtering options. You can filter on individual years. Those years are part of that date. And you have the relative date option and a range of dates. For example, if you're interested in a range of dates being, I want to select the starting month or the starting year or even the starting day, the lowest level is also a possibility, then you can set up your minimum, your start, and your end. So then it doesn't have to be from the beginning of this year to the current day. Then it can be your own choosing with a slider. With a slider, I'll maybe show the two options. That's always interesting to know how to work with dates, because that's going to return all the time. First option I'm going to take is the relative date. That gives us a very powerful input box. So relative date here in days, no, I'm going to take the years, and I'm going to take, this year is fine. This year is fine. And you will see in indication here from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. Anchor relative means that if you, for example, say the last 2 years, it's always going to count back from the current day today, or a date that you fill in, for example, yourself. But that takes us maybe a little bit too far for this introduction. I'm going to apply this filter here on the left option, apply the filter, and then it will become visible on the filter shelf. If we're not happy with the result, we can still do some changes or click the OK button, and then our filter is active. This is already interesting because this view didn't exist, and you as an explorer had the capability to connect to that workbook that already did exist. And you created your own visualization, and that will go faster and faster over time. You will see how quickly you grow. And this will only take you 5 minutes to generate this insight, maybe based on a very, very big up-to-date data source. Let's say you're searching in 1 million clients. If you do this action, it's very fast. You saw that I didn't have to wait that much. You can still do, for example, some further changes, because this is very, very static visualization. Maybe you're interested not in hovering over every name. You are interested in seeing that number immediately. And that brings us to the marks card. The marks card is for fine-tuning visualizations. Fine-tuning meaning I'm going to add extra information to what I've just created, and to add extra information, but We don't want to change the structure that we have created. So the structure is all fine. I see a bar for my sales. I see the customer name. That's good. I am now going to add, for example, a label. A label being, I see the bar, but at the end, I also want to see that number, the number that it is, because those differences are not that big and I want to really see it in a number. Then you can or come from your origin on the left again, where all your fields are residing, or you can take what's already on your visualization in this case and hold your control key again. On a Mac, it's command, so on a Windows, it's control. If you keep that control and you drag and drop, then you are copying that field and you're not replacing it. So if I now release it while still holding, you see that already the label is there, just with one drag and drop option. See what happens if I don't hold the control key? You are replacing it. So you are then visualizing it as a table and you have replaced that field. You can always go back with the back button as much as you want. That's something I always try and explain. There is no limit whatsoever to the go back functionality. So play around as much as you want and break stuff in your own visualization. You can always go back to a previous step where you were correct or where you were happy with the result. So that's something I always emphasize. Don't be afraid to mess up a visualization, you can always go back. So this is how you come in from an existing dashboard, existing sheets, and where you then create an extra insight. You can then either save it or just be happy with the fact that you saw what you wanted to know and close down again. Closing down your interface where you can work with the visualization is done here right on top of my name here on the cross. You can then close what you did and still be prompted with the message, do you still want to save this, or just don't save and go back to the view where you came from. If you save it, because this will show us where we can then put that visualization that we created as an extra. This is now part of this dashboard that I had. Let me go back real quickly to the starting point from this dashboard and see that it's now an addition for my account to this dashboard. So if I go back to my Explore side, or maybe the Home side where I came from, you see how this already changed. So I have worked with the overview and you see my selection. See in the detail, I have made a selection and I had saved also the selection, and you saw that in the recents. That were my recent actions. If I go back to the home page, you can also see that the sheet that I created, very conveniently called sheet 22, maybe try and don't do that. I also did not do this on purpose, for example, but it's not best practice to not name what you just created, of course. But you see that that's what you created most recently. If you click that one, you very quickly go back to the view that you have created yourself. Let's also see it's also added to the original, but maybe only visible to you because you created it on your own account and you did not originally include other people. So the original is still the same and saved in the sales department folder or project that we call them. So if we take a look at Explore Sales Department, the folder I created, I'm going in. I see the sales analysis workbook that holds all that work and where you also have worked with and created that extra sheet. If I go in, right down below the list, there is this new sheet that we have created through the web edit and not at all with a desktop app or whatever. We have used all the same kind of capabilities, but our insight is accessible again right there. So that's how an existing dashboard or existing data used for a dashboard can be leveraged for your own visualizations and your own insights. So you are coming from something that has already been created. Is it from colleagues? Is it from the creator of the company? Is it from the BI manager? Anyone who has created work and added you as the explorer to a certain group that has access to that work, because of course you always need access upfront to the correct visualizations and dashboards, of course. Otherwise, you just won't know of their existence because they will not be visible for you. And then you can create extra stuff based on existing dashboards. So that's a very powerful thing. I also created, like I told you guys earlier, if I go back to my Explorer, I also created a project with the stock portfolio analysis. And in this folder, I, as a creator, have made available a data source for my colleagues, for example. I haven't had the time to make visualizations, to do whatever, but I had the time to check the data source, to construct one, to verify it's correct. I'm happy with the fact that the numbers are in there and they are correct. So someone else has, me in this case, I'm the manager or I'm the owner of that data source, and I want to make it available quickly to my colleagues. I don't have time to investigate, but it exists, so I have launched it. I've created a folder that they have access to. So if they go to this stock portfolio project, you can then also see a list, but the identification here with the type is a data source. So it's the data source kind of icon. And also when hovering over all the icons on the server, it will give you a little bit of information. So I have also launched this data source from the application on the desktop, because launching data sources originally is something only for creators. Remember the overview of the 3 different roles: making data sources and constructing them and verifying them. Well, verifying is a little bit tricky, but I mean with verify, check, do joins, bring together all different kinds of information and make it into one data source. That's something saved for creators. creators. So this is now a data source, nothing more. So this is only information. So if you click the data source, you will be taken to another kind of interface, not an overview of a workbook that has been published, just an overview of the content of that data source. And in this case, so I forgot to tell you guys one thing. When I publish this data source, if you hover over, you can also put in some descriptions. That's something very useful in companies where you have many data sources that you can give your audience, your consulting people of that data source, that you can give them some kind of a guideline of what they can find in that data source, instead of all clicking on big data sources and losing time when they load in the background. So here I have made it the name, S&P 500 stock data, and I've made a description. This contains all the data for sectors, industries, and pricing. And if I'm not interested in that data source and maybe another one, then I don't have to click. I can already see that my information that I'm looking for is not in here. So if I click, I'm taken back to that data source specific interface. So remember when we were in the desktop kind of application, you also saw on the left an overview of all the data that was in there. So as well, blue is again the categorical value, and green is the numeric value. And people a little bit familiar with stock data can see the close, the dividends, the open, the volume. Those are standard information for stock data. And the interface we see here is actually what we saw in our agenda. It is the Ask Data interface. It's the Ask Data engine, and you can then type in. So there is suggested questions. So those are basic questions based on what Tableau can already find. So it finds a company. When I'm hovering over, you can see that this is a string type kind of field with almost 800 unique values. This already tells you something. Also, Texas Instruments contains, for example, the most amount of rows in your data. So it will have a lot of information on this company. And this allows you to investigate real quickly industry, a lot of null values. See, a lot of the companies in this data source don't have an industry associated with it. And that way, you can already quickly investigate if this data is for you correct enough or that it contains all the correct information, etc., etc. Here as well, the closing price. I almost have 3 million unique values in there, and they will all range around the the close the from 30 to 40, 50, you see the 100 kind of range for pricing. And that also makes sense because a lot of company stocks have a price of around 50, 100, 200. It's very unusual that the stock price is very, very high, like 50 or 100K. That's also for Berkshire Hathaway or something, just as an extra information. So this is the as data. If I type in here as data, you can then say company name, company by company, yes, but you have to really follow here. I haven't used this one a lot yet because I make the visualizations in the desktop app, of course, but you really need to follow along Tableau and let Tableau guide you a little bit, informing your questions so Tableau can make that visualization and interpret your question correctly, of course. They are working on this interface very hard to make it even so up until a point where if you type in the question that as it pops into your head, if you type it in like that, Tableau will interpret that question completely correctly and then give you a visualization. But at that point, they are not for the moment, but they are growing there. So let us just, for example, sort the company in an alphabetical order. That's one of the basic suggested questions. And this visualization just got made with one click of the button. It got made in 1 second, and the data source in the background is more than 5 million rows. So just to give you an idea of how fast Tableau just did this action, that's pretty impressive, I think. And we are yet again in the interface where we have the possibility of seeing the different other options that are used by Tableau for this visualization. So all the things Tableau used are listed. You can then quickly clear, and on the top right corner there's also the option to change the visualization type real quickly, some kind of a show me option actually. So if you go down, Tableau thinks, okay, bar chart for this question is the only option I see, but you can have a few more, you see. Also, all your fields are still in here. So it's a little bit more limited, but it is an answer on the question that you asked from your data. If going out of this view is the same as going out of the web edit environment. So click the cross again, and you're back at your ask data. Let's say as data, nothing for me. I'm happy with the fact that I have been provided with this data. This data now is going to be the source for my new workbook. You can see the option for a new workbook. So we are then not starting off from something that has already been created. No, like I said, I didn't have time up front. I made the data available. One of my colleagues can jump in and then say, okay, I am happy with this data. I'm going to create a new workbook. You are taken to a completely blank workbook, and this is practically 100% comparable with starting your work in the desktop application. You can start your analysis, see how many data is in this data source real quickly, pick up your count, put it on text, and you have a quick idea of the amount of data. Looking at all the companies, drag and dropping easy like that, and it's a nicely big data source, and it goes rather fast actually. That's something that keeps amazing me with this interface. So that's two ways of going into projects using published data sources, using work that has already been created, creating subscriptions in an email. So I think we're already there by covering all the individual different parts of the server itself. If people have shared things with me. So we have only looked at home. Home is the last visited things or dashboards or sheets. Explore is more like I'm going to search for something in a guided way. So the folders, the projects are in here. You can always also filter your Explore, being I have projects, but I can also just filter on workbooks. Then I will have all the workbooks listed instead of the projects. So the project folders are now removed as a top layer, and you're looking at all the dashboards and workbooks you have access to. You can click the quick star and then it will move to your favorites. So I currently have no favorites, but if I go back to my Explore and imagine you have access to 120 workbooks and you're only interested every day in the morning in five you consult every morning. You can then go in for your workbooks, then say, I am going to look at this World Indicators workbook and this Sales Analysis workbook. And these two, I'm looking at those every day. Instead of always going to Explore, you can go to your favorites. And this is a filtered list of your selections. Home already has, you see now the indication of favorites. Favorites gets priority on top of the recents, but the recents are also visible in an extra tab on the left. So again, Tableau tries to make it possible for you to navigate, see things that are important in multiple places and multiple ways. So it's always up to you to see which button you like most. Are you always going to home and quickly scroll, or are you going to the specific part yourself? Explore containing everything, favorites containing your starred items, recents are just in a correct order, like you can see here 14 minutes ago. The top one is always going to be the most recent, or you will have to resort on the other direction. But I mean, there's a lot of interaction possible from you. See? If you really know what you're looking for, you can always also use the search. If I, for example, say SP, I can see that I have the care spent SP. It's in the name of the sheet. But you also have the S&P 500 stock data. And there's a view that has this search term, and there is a data source. So all kinds of ways to find and retrieve information on the server. Always keep in mind only the information that you, of course, have access to. And recommendations. Recommendations, they should be made by other people to you. And then you will have your listing of recommendations here. Remember, in the alerts or in the notifications where you can invite people, those kinds of things will pop up here. Shared with me as well, but for the moment there is nothing shared with me, so it's also empty. But if you were to share, for example, this overview, you should then share and then share it with people in your server, in your group. And if you type in their name here, the workbook that you shared will pop up in their shared with me tab. So you see, there is very, very many options. And I think we are almost done. So we had the edit, now the share. Download is an option. Download, for example, in my case, is also the possibility for the workbook, but your possibilities will be limited a little bit based on your role. And your permissions. The permissions is the admin that can say all my explorers can download the data or download a PDF. But in most cases, the workbook is rather useless in that case, that you can't open it locally. So that option will probably be grayed out or inaccessible. So the download option, an image or a PDF speaks for itself. So you can filter your visualization and then download a PDF. Bear in mind, it takes some fine tuning and some tweaking. For example, if you want to print it out, that you play with some sizing to get it all on one page. But I have to say, I did it for a client lately, and after 2 or 3 tries, you have it correctly. So in the beginning, that was a little bit tricky, but Tableau also made a great effort in making that a little bit less messy to get that nice image. Comments. Comments is, for example, you make a few selections, and you also select maybe the East region. As of course, my selection was not in the East region. So the East region, I've drilled down in 2 steps, and I can then say comments. Okay, I'm seeing a seasonality. So I'm going to make a comment, and if I click add, I can then add people in my group or that I can also see, and they will be tagged and they will see those comments popping up in their notifications. See? So all those kinds of ways to work together, communicate in the environment of Tableau server, it really has come a long way, and it's a nice and easy to use environment, and it works really fast. So I can only advise to dig in, get maybe that sales department like I shown you here. I can show you a few other dashboards that are in here. For example, customers. There's many nice visualizations up for grasp. This is the internal workbook from Tableau itself that they've created. You can learn a lot of how they made their visualizations. So I would emphasize to get that to the server and interact with it, learn from it, and maybe apply it to one of your own data sources and grow as an interactor and an explorer itself, instead of just a viewer or a person that consults the visualizations or dashboards that are made for you. So I would really encourage to play around and get into the tool and play with it, search for insights, and that's all I can say actually. So I think I've covered everything. If I go over the list once more, creating own visualizations. In the beginning, you will be using Show Me, and that's very helpful to see where Tableau expects all the individual parts. Browsing and searching for content with the home page, with the recents, with the favorites. So on the left, you have all those identifications. Working with favorites, subscriptions. The data-driven alerts were not working with me today, but it is possible there to select an input and create a condition. And when that condition is met, you will have an input in your email like a subscription, but then triggered by not the fact that you want that in your mailbox every Monday, but for example, based on a number that has changed. So it's variable. And then how we can share and collaborate. So if we have saved it and we haven't invited, like our sheet number 22, very not best practice as a name, but still, if we have saved it and not invited someone, or it's saved in the same workbook with my colleagues, they will probably also see my work. But you can collaborate and share that way. And with the last part we saw with the comments, for example, we can interact with colleagues, we can bring attention to something. So that's how we can quickly and easily collaborate with our colleagues. So I think I'm there for this quick 1 hour introduction. It's not easy to put all that information into 1 hour, but if you are triggered, browse on our website. We are also organizing 1-day trainings or 2-day trainings where you really get exercises and try and search for specific insights based on different data sources to get your skills up to a level where you are very comfortable creating visualizations. So I would definitely invite you to scroll on our website and into the training section, where you can then see what may be helping you or can help you on your journey to excellence using Tableau itself. So browse on our website. Thanks for your attention, and I will leave you guys to the rest of your Friday afternoon and then the coming weekend. So thanks for your attention. And if there are any questions or something, you can always mail to our Biztory info address. Thanks, guys, and goodbye.